My stepsister got me expelled with planted evidence, kicked out at 12 while my mom watched. But years later, she stole all my designs, caught on camera breaking into my studio and got arrested. My mother lost everything now. I'm 20 years old. I work as a freelance designer and programmer, and if someone had told me 8 years ago that I was going to be where I am now, I probably wouldn't have believed them. Not because I didn't have talent or whatever, but because when you're 12 years old and your own mother just stands there watching you get kicked out of your house without saying absolutely anything, like literally nothing, it's hard to imagine that things can get better, you know what I mean? But anyway, I guess I should start from the beginning, when everything was normal and I was just a kid who had no idea his life was about to turn into a nightmare. My dad died when I was 10 years old. Heart attack, out of nowhere, on a random Tuesday while he was at work. He was my best friend, you know, one of those dads who really gets involved and isn't just there physically but mentally absent. We played video games together. He taught me how to build computers. He helped me with homework even though he hated math, and he was basically my hero. So imagine, you're 10 years old and your favorite person in the world just disappears one day. There was no goodbye, no last conversation, nothing. I just remember my mom crying on the phone, and then everything was a blur of people dressed in black and food that nobody really ate. The next few months were weird. My mom was like on autopilot. I was trying to be strong because I thought that's what I was supposed to do, and the house felt empty in a way I can't even describe properly. What happened next still surprises me when I think about it. Like a year after my dad died, maybe a little less, my mom met Daniel. I don't know exactly where she met him. I think at work or something, but the point is things moved really fast. Like, really fast. Suddenly, he was at our house every weekend, then during the week too. And before I could process what was happening, my mom told me they were getting married. I was like 11 at the time, I think, and honestly, I didn't know what to think. On one hand, I wanted my mom to be happy because she looked better than those first months after Dad's death. But on the other hand, there was something about Daniel that I didn't like. I can't say exactly what it was. Maybe the way he looked at me or how he talked like I was a nuisance. But my gut told me this guy wasn't cool. And oh, surprise, Daniel had a daughter. Chloe, 1 year older than me. And from the first day I met her, I knew we were going to have problems. She was one of those people who are super sweet and charming when adults are looking, but as soon as they turn around, she becomes a completely different person. I remember perfectly the first time they came to the house before they moved in. Chloe saw my room and literally said, "I like this room, I want this room," and Daniel just laughed like it was an adorable joke. Spoiler alert, it wasn't a joke. When they officially moved in, guess who had to leave his bedroom and move to the smallest room in the house? The one that was basically a glorified closet. Me. And not only that, Chloe also took over a bunch of my stuff, like my video games, some of my books, even some collectible figures my dad had bought me. When I told my mom, she just said something like, "Share with your sister. She needs to feel welcome." My sister? I barely knew her and she was already taking my room and my stuff. The next few months were basically hell. Daniel treated me like I was a nuisance in my own house, always making passive-aggressive comments about how I was lazy or inconsiderate if I didn't do exactly what he wanted. Chloe was worse because she was more subtle. She did things like hide my homework and then tell my mom I was irresponsible, or eat my lunch and blame me for losing it. And my mom, God, my mom just didn't see anything or didn't want to see. Every time I tried to tell her something, she basically told me I was exaggerating or that I needed to adapt because now we were a family. But I didn't feel like a family. It felt like I was an unwanted guest in my own house. And every day was worse than the last. Then we get to the moment that basically changed everything. I was 12 years old. I was in 7th grade, and there was a super important math test, like one of those that counts as 30% of your final grade. The night before the exam, I was studying in the living room because Chloe was using my old room. I mean her room now, and I didn't have space in the closet where I slept. I left my backpack in the living room when I went to sleep because I was super tired and I thought, I'll pick it up in the morning. Giant mistake. Turns out Chloe also had a math test the next day, and I don't know how, but she got a copy of the test answers. I don't know if she stole them or someone passed them to her or what, but she had them. And that night, while I was sleeping, she put those answers in my backpack. In my backpack. The next morning I got to school. Normal. No idea what was about to happen. During the exam, the teacher started walking down the aisles, checking that nobody was cheating. And when she passed by my desk, she saw that my backpack was kind of open. She came over, put her hand in, and pulled out the test answers. I froze, literally couldn't even speak. And she asked me, "Where did you get this?" And I could only say, "I don't know. It's not mine. I don't know how it got there." Of course, she didn't believe me. They sent me to the principal's office. They called my mom and Daniel, and basically they accused me of cheating and stealing school property. I tried to explain to them that someone had put that in my backpack, that I hadn't stolen anything, but nobody believed me. Daniel was there with his, "I knew this kid was trouble" face, and my mom just looked embarrassed and disappointed. The worst part was after. They suspended me for a week while they investigated the matter, and when they finally determined that yes, I had apparently stolen those answers, they expelled me permanently. They kicked me out of school, at 12 years old, for something I didn't do. Chloe, of course, put on a perfect show of being surprised and disappointed in her little stepbrother, and my attempts to say she had done it only made me look more guilty and desperate. And my mom never, not once, considered that I might be telling the truth. That's what hurt the most. Honestly, that the person who was supposed to believe me and protect me simply assumed I was a liar and a thief. Daniel used that as his perfect excuse. I got home after the school finalized my expulsion, and he was there in the living room with my mom and all my stuff, and when I say all, I mean absolutely everything, was in trash bags at the entrance. He told me, "You have 10 minutes to grab your stuff and get out of my house. I'm not going to have a thief living under my roof. You're a bad influence on Chloe." I tried to tell my mom something, anything, but she just sat there staring at the floor, without saying anything. Nothing. And Daniel kept going. Added more absurd accusations like that. I had been stealing money from them. Never happened. That I had tried to hurt Chloe. Never happened. Basically making up reasons to justify kicking me out. I was 12 years old and they were throwing me out on the street, and my mom did nothing to stop it. I don't know how I managed to grab all the bags. I think shock gave me like super strength or something. But I left that house knowing I was never going to go back. I called my grandpa from a neighbor's phone, my dad's dad, and told him everything. He lived like 40 minutes away but arrived in 20. He was so angry his hands were shaking on the steering wheel. He took me to his house, and that night I cried, more than I had cried since my dad died. My grandpa tried to talk to my mom, but she wasn't answering his calls, and when he finally talked to her a few days later, she basically said, I needed to learn responsibility and that this was the right decision. Can you believe it? Kicking out your 2-year-old son is teaching him responsibility. Living with my grandpa was the best thing that could have happened to me in that horrible situation. He was an incredible man. You know, one of those older guys who have lived 1,000 lives and have stories for everything. He enrolled me in a new school, talked to the principals and explained the situation so they would accept me despite the expulsion, and basically became my complete support system. But more important than all that, he saw me. He really saw me. He noticed I liked to draw and design things. He bought me a second-hand graphics tablet he found at a garage sale and told me, "You have talent, kid. Don't waste it." I started teaching myself graphic design through YouTube tutorials and free online courses, and I also got into programming because I realized both things went well together. It wasn't easy. I mean, I was still dealing with all the trauma of having been betrayed by my own family, but having something to focus on helped me. I became obsessed with learning. I spent hours and hours practicing, doing small projects, improving. By the time I was in high school, I was already doing basic freelance work, like logos for small businesses and simple websites. I wasn't making much, maybe $50 or $100 per project, but it was mine, you know, something I had built with my own effort. My grandpa was super proud, always bragging to his friends about his grandson, the designer. During all this time, like from 12 to 17 years old, I had no contact with my mom, Daniel, or Chloe. Zero. My mom knew where I was because my grandpa told her. But she never tried to visit me or call me or anything. It was like I had stopped existing for her. And honestly, after a while, I also stopped thinking about her. Or, well, I tried. But then, right before turning 17, she showed up at my grandpa's house. She hadn't talked to me in almost 5 years, and just showed up. My grandpa let her in but stayed there present, and she started with the, "I've been thinking about you a lot. I miss you. How have you been?" As if the last 5 years hadn't happened. I just looked at her and asked, "What do you want?" Because I knew she hadn't come for me. She had come for something. And I was right. Turns out Daniel had lost his job. His business or whatever he did had gone down the drain, and they were having money problems. And my mom, in her infinite logic, thought that I, her son, who she had abandoned and let get thrown out on the street at 12 years old, should help them financially. She told me she knew I was working, doing designs, that my grandpa had told her, and that they needed help with rent and expenses. I told her no. Just like that. No. She looked at me like I was the worst son in the world and started with the, "I'm your mother. I gave you life. You owe me this." And I just laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was one of those laughs that come out when something is so absurd you can't believe it. I told her, "You kicked me out on the street when I was 12 years old. You did nothing when your husband and your stepdaughter made my life impossible. You haven't tried to contact me in 5 years, and now you show up asking for money. I don't owe you anything." She left furious, and my grandpa gave me a pat on the shoulder and told me, "Well done." Things got interesting after that. I found out through mutual acquaintances, because you know how small towns work, that Chloe had been expelled from college for plagiarism. Apparently, she had been turning in other people's work as if it were hers, and they caught her. The irony didn't escape me. I also found out that Daniel's business hadn't just collapsed, but he was in legal trouble for something related to fraud or taxes. I don't remember exactly what, but basically the guy was in serious trouble. And my mom, well, they lost the house. The house where I had grown up, where my dad had lived, where they had decided I wasn't good enough to stay. They lost it. My mom sent me a text message. I don't know how she got my number. Probably my grandpa gave it to her in a moment of weakness. And the message was basically an essay about how they were losing everything and needed my help. I deleted the message and blocked the number. It sounds cruel. I know. But after everything they did to me, after years of rebuilding myself, I didn't owe them anything. My grandpa supported me completely. He told me I had the right to live my life, without carrying the weight of people who had treated me like garbage. But my mom didn't give up. One day I received a certified letter. She was suing me for support or family maintenance or something like that, basically arguing that as her son I had a legal obligation to help her financially now that she was in need. I was 18 at the time, barely of legal age, and they were suing me. I got a lawyer. Well, my grandpa helped me get one, and we went to court. It was surreal, seeing my mom there with her lawyer, trying to argue that I owed her money, while we presented all the evidence of how they had treated me, how they had kicked me out as a minor, how they never tried to have a relationship with me after. The case was dismissed. The judge basically told her she had no legal basis, and that it was inappropriate to try to get money from a son she had abandoned. I left that court feeling vindicated but also empty, because part of me still wanted my mom to be my mom, but that person didn't exist anymore. If she ever existed after my dad's death, Chloe reappeared in my life in the worst possible way when I was 19. By then, my freelance business was going really well. I was working with bigger clients. My rates had gone up considerably, and I had a solid portfolio. I had created an Instagram account to show my work. Nothing fancy, just designs I had made and projects I was working on. One day, I started getting messages from people asking me why I was posting the same designs on 2 different accounts. I investigated, and it turned out Chloe had created an account pretending to be a designer and had literally stolen all my designs, posted them as if they were hers, and was trying to get clients with my work. My designs, my work, like it was nothing. I was furious, like more furious than I had been in a long time. I filed copyright claims on all her posts, and Instagram flagged her account and removed all the stolen content. She sent me super aggressive messages saying I was an asshole and that I had ruined her chance to be successful, and I just thought, really? Doesn't she see the irony of accusing me of ruining her life when she literally got me kicked out of my house by stealing a test? But I didn't respond. I just blocked her and thought that was the end. But it wasn't the end. Like a month later, I got a visit from the police. Chloe and her boyfriend, Jason, a guy who apparently was as despicable as she was, had filed a report saying I was selling counterfeit designs and that I had stolen work from them. Basically, they tried to flip the situation and make me look like the thief. Thank God. I'm obsessive about keeping everything. I had original files of all my projects with dates and metadata, contracts with clients, emails, everything. I showed everything to the police, and it became super clear that I was the original creator and that Chloe was the one who had stolen. I pressed charges against her and Jason for defamation and harassment. I thought that would be enough for them to leave me alone, but Chloe had to put on one last big show. I had rented a small studio to work, nothing fancy, but it was mine, and I had installed security cameras because, well, after everything that had happened, I was a bit paranoid about my stuff. One night, the cameras caught Chloe. Yes, Chloe, breaking into the studio. I don't know how she got the address, probably stalking my social media or something, but there she was, breaking the lock and entering. I saw her in the video grabbing physical designs I had, original sketches, searching my computer, basically trying to steal everything she could. I called the police immediately, and they caught her leaving the building with a bag full of my stuff. They arrested her right there. I recovered most of my stuff, but some of the original sketches were damaged, torn, or crumpled, and that hurt me because they were pieces I had worked on for hours. Chloe faced charges for breaking and entering and theft, and after everything else that had happened, including the false police report, the consequences were pretty serious. I don't know exactly what happened to her because honestly I stopped following the case after I got my stuff back, but I know she had to pay fines, and I think she even spent time in jail. Not much, but something. Daniel also ended up in prison for the fraud thing or whatever he had done. I found out by chance, and my mom basically lost everything. Now I'm 20. My freelance business became my full-time career. I work with big clients, companies I never thought would hire me when I started doing logos for $50. I make good money, I live in a decent apartment, and my grandpa is still my favorite person in the world. He asks me all the time if I'm ever going to forgive my mom, and honestly, I don't know. Part of me feels sorry for her because she basically chose the wrong people and lost everything, but another bigger part, the part that remembers the 1-2-year-old kid standing at his house entrance with trash bags, can't forget. I'm not angry like before. You know, that rage I felt that consumed me, that's not there anymore. Now it's more like indifference. She's a stranger who shares my DNA and that's all. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if my dad hadn't died, if my mom had been stronger, if she had defended me even once. But then I think that maybe all this, as horrible as it was, made me who I am. It taught me to depend on myself, to work hard for what I want, not to expect anyone to rescue me. I have clients who respect me, a portfolio I'm proud of, and an incredible relationship with my grandpa, who basically saved my life. That's more than a lot of people have, I guess. Last week, my grandpa showed me an old photo of my dad and me when I was like 8 years old. We were building a computer together and we both had these giant smiles. He told me, he would be so proud of you. And I think he's right. I think my dad would see everything I accomplished despite what happened and would be proud. And that, at the end of the day, is what matters more than anything else.